you've got myself, James, and we've got Nathan from Defiant. So I was heading up the Opfor side of things, Opfor Command, and Nathan was heading up Task Force Command. We have with us Brandon. Nearly forgot your name then, Brandon. We have Brandon. Do you want to give me a little bit of introduction on who you are, what team you belong to, what side you were on for this operation, and what your role was within it?
Yeah, I'm Brandon. I'm part of Team Apex. And this event, I was mostly doing reconnaissance missions throughout the site, kind of just heading up the whole task force, gathering intel on what Opfor was doing and troop movements and camps and things like that.
And we've got Tom or Dragar with us. So do you want to give a quick introduction onto who you are, your team, and what you were doing during the op?
Yeah, hi, Tom, Dragar Airsoft Drums on Instagram. I was running as TL and RO for Rage 4, which is one of the Opfor call signs. Just working with Russian PMCs and fighting for car rebel forces.
So in terms of the situation brief, what this event was all about was the current conflicts, or I guess stresses going on in the Central African Republic, where the French or the West in general are pulling out of regions in Africa. You'll find that the Russians, especially Russian PMCs, are moving in to kind of influence things. Interestingly, a few days before the op started, I think the Central African Republic government did announce that they were aligning with Russia. So yeah, we found that quite interesting. Just as we were heading out to put our Russian kit on and play LARP soldiers. So yes, we had Russian PMCs and Russian Special Forces training Central African Republic soldiers. We had the West, by way of a specialist task force, there to act as a security element for United Nations. So that was the brief. In effect, it's not a conflict zone. It never was a conflict zone. It was an uneasy tension between the two sides. That was until, as game organisers, we decided to light the blue touch paper and let all hell break loose. So, Brandon, do you want to talk about how you started the event from the off? You know, what did you do? What did you go through? As you were in a reconnaissance role, what did you see?
Starting the day, I was with Sierra 1, which is the Apex call sign. We started within our harbour area. From there, we was basically told to go out and conduct some recce's on the camp as a unit. We patrolled alongside the embassy of Russia. Come across obviously your training area that was around the spot code 1 mark, whether you guys were conducting live training. From there, we moved down and found the first camp of the day, which turned out to be the only camp that was set up at the time. Took some photos of the training area, and then from that we kind of just patrolled around and got a few more photos of key interest points, and from there kind of moved on from that.
So at what point were you made aware that it was a sort of Russian Central African Republic training area?
Probably about the time when we walked past, and we was told by a very angry little man.
Hey, less of the little. I've worked hard on this pod.
We was told to politely fuck off multiple times, that this was a live training event, a training scenario, and from that I was in probably only about 50-60 meters away, and took quite a few photos of people yelling contact and dismounting. Mounting back up. So yeah, that kind of just led us to believe that it was a training area.
So okay, so let's introduce Tom to this bit then. So that training piece that we put together for you, how did that work out? What did you think about it?
I think from the start off for us, obviously we moved from the safe zone to the embassy and SAM site area, which was also the training area, where sort of Russian PMC advisors started running through some drills and contact drills and convoy ambush practice. It was all in kind of aid to aid us towards our goal to follow the next day, but I'll touch on that a little bit later. So basically, most of the call signs were practicing vehicle vehicle drills, debussing, coming under contact, falling back and stuff, where my call sign was actually placed on embassy sort of security, sort of just to show we had a Russian PMC presence dug in and stuff. There was a lot of movement. Obviously, we got eyes on task force moving around us and stuff. Obviously, it's probably your call sign, Brandon, that moved past at one point and got shouted at many times, which was quite amusing from our point of view. But that's basically how the ops started for us. We were very much guns up, tooled up, which is very unusual for most kind of mil sims. A lot of Opfor start off kind of playing the civ pop role. To start a game proper tooled up was a bit of a different experience and quite good.
So yeah, you started tooled up, but your ROEs were strictly non-contact and don't contact unless you're fired upon.
Yes, and I think it was brilliant. Like literally, like you guys have already touched on, everyone kept to the character of the game in that sense. I don't think there was a single kind of force of hostility on each other. There almost was when live fire rounds from the training started flying across the training area. One last boss call sign almost got a few rounds put on them and nearly retaliated from what I'm hearing. But everyone kept their cool. So yeah.
I think it was the Spartan guys that were in that unknown contact, but obviously
we just decided to do a contact front or a contact left and wang some rounds their way.
Yeah. I mean, to be, in a headspace where you're getting shot at, so you think, and to not retaliate as an airsofter, just shows the caliber of the guys that are in that team. And I think that moment there, I think was a bit squeaky bum time for myself running task force. I was thinking, here we go, it started already, but
I have to say,
fantastic.
I have to say, every time I bumped into those Spartan guys, they were brilliant, absolute mustard. Whether I was marching at them in full Russian grumpy mode, shouting expletives at them, and I just got met by a very calm, slight grin and a polite face that went, are you live firing at the moment, or would you mind if I just had a little patrol through this area? And it was quite interesting that as Opfor, normally when you confront task force, more often than not, the response you'll get is very bolshy. Like, I'm wearing multicam, I'm the one in charge here, rah rah rah. And it was very interesting to see someone actually reason with you rather than go head to head with you. And because he reasoned with me, I was just like, yeah, okay, well, we're not live firing for 2 hours, so make your way through. When you make your way out, I want you to check in with me at the embassy so I know you're out of the training area. Thanks very much. And just let them through. But yeah, it was
brilliant stuff.
But the guy, I mean, every time I came across them, they were stellar. They were good guys.
I had some great firefights with them over the weekend, actually. Many times it was one of them guys that ended up taking me out, or I took them out, and it just that sort of knowing the guys on the like on your opposing team against you, you have a lot of respect for one of each other. You can have a great laugh as well. That's kind of the enjoyment part.
Yeah, it was nice to be running task force in a position of basically knowing everyone on it, and the majority of the guys on Opfor as well. It felt like it was a private event. We just invited our friends, but we're just so thankful that our friends actually just support us and come and turn up. Really.
Yeah, it is a very intertwined community. I mean, we do know, as Opfor, Tom, most of the guys operating on task force and vice versa. So yeah, it's there is a lot of respect for the other side, which is a nice way to operate. I think anyway.
Yeah, definitely.
So, Brandon, once you sort of done your bit of recce in and around that training area, where did you move to? Where were you tasked, or where were other teams tasked that you were aware of?
I think straight after that we kind of RTB'd just to kind of update the map of what we had found, as we had found obviously a few points of interest that Nathan jotted down. From there we moved out along with Apex, just kind of trying to see if we could find the rest of these camps. I then moved off believe looking at this, it's probably around about green spot 5, I believe I moved off from, and just kind of set up a little bit of a little forward camp for myself.
Sorry, just to explain to anybody listening, unfortunately or fortunately, the map that Task Force had was entirely different to the map that Opfor had. So when he says green 5, anyone Opfor might not have a clue what you're talking about.
Oh, you had completely different maps, did you? Oh,
Oh
okay.
yeah, we're not going to run off the same map. Yeah.
So I was set up kind of around the red triangle that you can see to the left. That was
Okay,
kind
right.
of
So
my
that's the sort of southwest of the site. Yeah.
yeah, the kind of bit that leads on to the green dark woodland, as we
Gotcha.
referred to it as the whole
Yeah.
event. From that point there, I just done a lot of talking backwards and forwards from Nathan, telling them where people would move into, who I'd seen, and just kind of reporting back on a few bits where we might see troops move into. But because there wasn't too many camps set up, I kind of did sit there for a little while waiting for something to happen. But there wasn't a lot going on because your guys were running the training for so long.
Well, I think once we concluded the training, what we actually do is we moved we moved the Opfor out in a civilian capacity to go and recce the areas that they wanted to set their harbour areas up in. So yeah, we had a lot of civ pop move around at that time. I think it was possibly one of the only times we really used civ pop properly, because people were so good with our ROEs. Opfor were able to stay in green kit for a majority of the time without risk of
Getting shot.
yeah, without risk of a firefight.
I think the ROE was followed perfectly. I don't even think the first round was fired until not long after the SAM site went down.
I think
You shot the drone, other than the training exercise.
Well, yeah, we'll get onto that in a bit, but I think probably the first people to fire around was probably Tom's lot, in fairness.
It was, yes. I felt so dirty as well. It was so horrible.
These guys don't know what's coming from, but let's just backtrack a little bit. So, it must have been about 2:30, 3 o'clock in the afternoon when I heard the first inkling that a mass grave situation had been uncovered. Do you know who it was, Nathan? Do you know who it was that discovered that?
That was myself. That
I think it was the Apex guys.
I'm looking at the photo now. At 2:31 was when I sent the photos back, as I believe George and the Apex lot were having a bit of difficulty getting down to the site, just purely from where your people, like the Opfor, was patrolling around. So yeah, I think around about then I got the photos for it, marked it back, and then I can't remember what else happened from that point. I think probably no less than an hour later was when Tom, I'm sure you'll take over from here, turned up in your forensic suits. I think it was around about 3:30 that happened.
Yeah, I was just touching on what you're saying. Like, one part of your call sign was having trouble due to the fact there was an Opfor foot patrol. That was actually my guys just before.
Oh, is it?
We went for a foot patrol down into the valley, fully tooled up, just to kind of rattle the saber and just kind of like walk around saying, "Yeah, we're here, boys." And it was quite fun. We walked past the front of whoever the guys were at Dale End, and we we're like, "All right," and they were like, "Yeah," and there was this unspoken element of tension. It was great. It was
I can imagine what that was like.
That's good. That's what we were going for.
Yeah,
that uneasy tension between two teams. It's not a conflict, but you are utterly, you just don't trust one another.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, at some point, you're going to be in somebody's sights, but at the moment, you have to play nice.
Yeah. So we got shortly after the grave come through. That was kind of like the next turning point of the story. We got obviously James. You pulled us to the side and said, "Right, I need you guys to do this, take on this role play element." It was like, "Yeah, not a problem." So we were all in the safe zone, getting kitted up in these hazmat suits, and they were like, "Oh man, this is warm, isn't it?" And then Jack from Mops from my guys was like, "Oh, have you got any gaffer tape? Yeah, let's gaffer up the zips and gaffer the wrists on and the boots." And we're like,
I wondered why they were all that gaff was on there. So I was thinking they didn't really need to do that, but
no, they didn't.
No,
but someone's bright idea.
It looked good, and I had a roll of gaffer tape in the booking inbox, so it happened.
So we ended up pushing off to the burial site, which we honestly, despite the fact it was right next door to where our camp was, we had no idea it was there. Like, we had walked in there and had a little look around, but we weren't like looking for anything, so we had no idea it was there. And obviously we're there, you're there in the UN garb, so kind of got the brief, we know what's doing. So we just went about to start doing forensic scientists, taking pictures. We had a couple of guys with GoPros on their chests, like recording. documenting things.
Yeah.
And then before long, a task force element turned up with the press, and then all the
So, yeah,
shenanigans and banter took off from there.
The situation was obviously that task force had discovered what was potentially a mass grave, had alerted the United Nations, and United Nations were going to respond with the government officials from the Central African Republic. Press were also made aware and wanted to come down and do some investigative reporting. So that was the situation we had there. We had the press in there with a security detail from task force. We had Central African Republic government officials. We had a couple of members of the United Nations with a Land Rover sat just out of reach. I think we had some nosy neighbours at some point as well. But yeah, so yeah, go on, Tom. Tell us how things rolled out.
Well, obviously we were in there conducting our investigation of the crime scene. And
the crime, though, was it, Tom? Come on, let's be
no,
honest.
of course not. Let's get this right. Yeah,
There was a lot of grey areas of whether or not it was a mass grave, but all the skeletons, the skulls, the bones kind of led towards it. But every time I mentioned it, it wasn't a mass grave. It was more just a coincidence.
Tom, what was it officially?
Officially, the official word of the car. Or of the car government officials was that it was a family plot grave who unfortunately died from an Ebola outbreak.
That was it.
There you have it, folks. Yeah,
it was the official word. So obviously the press come up. The very talented lady playing the character. I mean, we all lost character so many times because it was just hilarious. Some of the answers. Totally unscripted off the bat, and it was just like, how do you know these people died from Ebola and not some genocide? No, this is no genocide. You can tell that they've been dead here for a long time.
I think there was people kicking bones, and that was the reason they had Ebola or something like that. I'm sure I saw someone lean over and poke it and say, "There you go. That's why they've got Ebola."
It was fantastically funny.
How do you know they died? Yeah.
It was for Tom to try and keep up an African accent for half an hour.
We're not going to go into that.
I've got some good recordings, but I think my favorite. My favorite question from the reporter she was interviewing the Central African Republic government officials. The question was. One of the officials said, "Oh, they've been dead for some time," and the reporter said, "Well, what evidence do you have to support that claim?" And he went, "Well, they have no flesh." And at that point, I think there was some crying with laughter.
Everyone just went. We looked completely lost character. It's making me smile now thinking about it. Actually, that's funny.
I do remember that question, or another question of how do you know they're dead? Was also asked by the reporter, and that was when I peeked my head around the corner just to see what was going on. Everyone was laughing, and I was like, "Okay, I'll poke my head back round and carry on watching."
Yeah, carry on security. Yeah,
it was kind of like a carry on Gravedigger kind of an episode. It was ridiculous.
It was sort of then at that point. We'd kind of, we'd been given the knowledge privy what was about to go down. So I was kind of waiting for your cue, and you gave me the kind of nod. And at that point, I pulled the scientist to the side to clear the blast radius. And then, of course, an IED went off, triggered by something or someone, who knows. And unfortunately, taking the press got caught up in the blast. My guys were running around screaming our heads off because we're just lonely forensic scientists. And it was at that point the task force security all whipped up guns and started aiming at us as if it was our fault that the bomb went off. And, that was a pretty tense moment. I had like a Mark 18 pointed right in my face. I was like, I'm going to get slotted. And I'm just sitting there cowering on the floor.
Got nothing but a paper suit to protect yourself with.
Yeah, that was cool. That was a little bit of a high tension moment, but it took a few screams of the UN guy to sort it out.
So, Brandon, tell me, I know you were on scene. Did you react to the casualty? Tell me how it looked from your perspective.
From my perspective, the explosion went off. Everyone was kind of startled, and everyone's first reaction was guns up, not to kind of do anything else but guns up. And then once we took a couple of seconds to kind of compose ourselves, it didn't help. We had another angry UN official that was shouting at us at the same time.
Well, is that because you had guns in civilians' faces again?
That may be partly towards what the shouting was about, something about war crimes and World War III starting. Then the Spartan boys moved to secure the HVT. I gave the notepad back to Tom's scientists, which was the only reason that they were kind of there was for the notepad, and they kept on moving and almost getting shot. And then after that, we extracted the HVT, jumped back onto the back of the wagon, and then brought it back to Nathan at the task force base.
So, yeah, Nathan, what kind of intel were you getting during this time? What updates were you receiving?
All I could hear over the radio was IED, IED. For about 5 seconds, it was just constant
at what
over
point
the
were
radio.
you told that it was a Kazivac situation?
I think it was me that called it.
Yeah,
in,
I think it was Brandon with his panicked tone of telling me that we're going to be dropping someone down in the harbour area imminently.
I think the panic tone was the fact that we was going 20 down a pathway that I knew for a fact was not the flattest surface. Every time, I'd be holding my PTT and we'd hit a bump and I'd almost fly out the back. And then that was probably where the panic tone come in, because I thought I was actually going to have an actual Kazivac because I broke my leg.
I mean, thank you very much to Luke, the driver, for driving that vehicle all weekend.
Uncomfortable.
But
yeah, was on the back as well. It looked like a normal truck had like half of it cut away at the back.
What was the official verdict on what caused that explosion? Or what do you believe caused that explosion versus what is the official verdict on what caused it?
To be honest, I'm still unsure to this day. All I heard over the radio was IED for about 7 seconds.
I think the unofficial report was that someone from Task Force had managed to set off a bomb or an unexploded mine, which took out the UN reporter.
Yeah, so the newspaper that was published on the morning of
the
Sunday,
propaganda that was posted.
No.
Nah, everyone knows the press is free.
Now there will be more newspapers. I might even extend it on to we can have a page 3 occur, because there was 2 pages to that newspaper. I'd like to push it to page 3, just for fun, really. Yeah.
Rate my goat.
Yeah. Okay. Right. No, I'm not going to say that. All right. Okay. So, so that newspaper did say that it was believed to be a dormant landmine left over from conflicts of the past. That due to the unexpected disturbance in the area, of course caused by Task Force, probably led to its detonation. So yeah, that's as far as the car government is concerned, it's all Task Force's fault.
Yeah, it was the official word.
I saw a very suspicious man setting things up in there probably about 20 minutes prior that if I would have got photos on, I'm sure the car would have
I'm sure those photos would have disappeared quickly.
You weren't wearing multicam.
Yeah. Okay. So I think after that there was a period of kind of rest, recuperation. There may have been some patrols moving about. Tom, do you remember what you did after that, apart from wipe the sweat off?
Yeah, after cooling down, and I think you gave our call sign like 45 minutes.
Yeah, actually, I do remember you giving some time, because you had gone from fighting patrol or reconnaissance patrol into that role, standing in the sun for an hour and a bit.
We hadn't stopped, working out. We hadn't been back to our base since our camp since the beginning of the.
Everybody else had been. All the task force had been through it.
Yeah, we'd been there a few times. You should have asked us. We would have cooked you something up while you was on the way back.
Could have
brought over our water or something. Yeah. So after doing our little basically recoup, we got called back up and came back to the embassy area, and I think we got put on stag on the SAM site we were there for quite a while, I remember, because most of the other guys at this point were out putting their camps up, I think. So once again, Rage 4 was one of the only call signs with an audience the only guys with the established call sign. So me and the Metalops guys basically just we because we were a 5-man element, so I had two guys on the SAM site, 3 guys on the embassy, and then was rotating it between and just changing up stag positions basically. And I think we were there for maybe on stag then for an hour and a half maybe.
I think it was more like an hour. We tried to rotate every hour.
Yeah, I can't remember what it was.
But it seems about right. We give you a bit of time to rest and then stick you on stag for even longer.
Yeah, classic.
Yeah, sounds
That's
about
when you
right.
get the real rest in, when you're on stag, start drifting off.
Yeah, I had some. On that note, I had a lot of good chats with the Spartan guys. Apparently, they had a OP out there at one point, and they were just watching us. And we knew there were people out there watching us, but I had no idea where it was. So, like, hats off to them guys and their OP, because it was
must have been when they got their camo net out. I think they were all laying underneath it, like all laid on top of each other underneath this camo net. But did a good job.
Saucy, not exactly socially distant, but
nice and sweaty. They come in the same car, didn't they? So
that doesn't matter then. Yeah, share a car, share a cam net. Who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
I think.
So, I do remember at this point. I think you were receiving info in from the Nathan. You were receiving intel in from the Spartan guys. I forget their call sign now.
They were. I think actually they were around the SAM site area. I forget the exact location, but they had eyes on Tom or part of Tom's camp, and also the SAM site area, and their tasking was to basically set up a little OP and to see if they could try and work out any sort of Opfor routine, or whether it be stag or any patrols or whatever.
Sure.
I don't know how long they were there for until we had to move them on their way.
Well, that's it. So at around 6 o'clock, there was the launch of a surface-to-air missile, which took out I can't remember the name of the actual drone now. It's gone from my head. Took out a US drone that was overhead. Car government immediately said, "Oh, that was a mistake. We were launching it at an aerial target. The aerial target went down and it locked onto the nearest viable target." And
we didn't get an apology for that, by the way.
I think you'll find the Central African Republic president phoned the United Nations and AFRICOM immediately as soon as he was informed.
Right. Yeah,
at least that's what the newspaper says.
Yeah.
And that is gospel. That's real.
And that's certainly not bias.
So I'm starting to get second thoughts about this whole newspaper. I feel like it was biased to more one side of the teams than the other.
Nah.
I read the Daily Mail.
Yeah, it all depends on what side I am. If I'm writing the newspaper, it's my agenda, isn't it? So So it was a surface-to-air missile launch that made contact with a US drone. At that point, or shortly after, we managed to intercept the drone feed, didn't we, Nathan? So you tell us what happens.
So as game organisers, we always want to look for ways to up the immersion. And obviously it helps if you could do it in a way that doesn't cost any money to the business, as it's expensive enough as it is. So one idea we had would we'd basically provide teams in the WhatsApp group the actual the video footage of, or from the drone's perspective, actually being hit by the SAM site. I actually filmed it in inside Armour 3, which I don't know whether everyone noticed that it was from a game. I guess you must have. Yeah.
I guess if you play the game, it's Armour, isn't it? Nice.
Yeah. I guess if you play the game, it was probably quite obvious. But to be able to put that into the the WhatsApp chat is something that's a little bit different. The idea was there for again, immersion purposes.
Yeah, you're taking like a narration point and actually making it like a physical piece of game.
Yeah,
exactly.
We did set off a particularly large explosive to simulate the strike, and then followed it up with that video, so that we had that explosive, which probably got people looking around going, "What the hell was that?" And then followed it up with that piece of intel. Yeah.
I think a lot of the time when you are at these kind of events, something will happen, and then you're just told, like, oh, this building's just been destroyed. You can't go there, or this is a meth lab's just exploded. But the fact that it was kind of backed up by a video that everyone was kind of crowded around watching to watch the actual drone go down and get shot down overhead.
I mean, the only
was a
thing I
nice
would have
touch,
loved to have done is had a projector.
That I think that would have been quite useful.
If we could have established the task force location a little bit better, had maybe a 12x12 tent there for with a full size map, and used a projector to do briefs and stuff, we could have put that onto a projector, which would have been quite cool. It's definitely something we can think about doing. But again, we are still in our infancy, I suppose, and gaining that kind of equipment, or actually, to be honest, storing that kind of equipment is a difficulty that we do face. But yeah, it's something we could definitely think about doing. It would be cool. So yeah, Sam launched, and I remember putting out to the Opfor teams that, we've launched a surface-to-air missile, we've made contact. Here is the intercepted video. You are now weapons free to engage.
Release the leash. You unleash the dogs of war, mate. We also had that. We had intercepted a UN HVT at that point as well. I think two things happened. The SAM site went off.
I'd completely forgotten about that. So
yeah,
thanks for reminding me.
I did get a photo of a man being strangled into the WhatsApp.
That's pretty much. Well, basically the drone was taken out at that time. Also, we had intercepted a UN sort of official, and basically the car rebel forces had taken him captive, and then my team spent like the next maybe like hour and a half moving him around the site, avoiding being captured. Everywhere we went, we kept running into task force patrols. But the first place we set off, we were basically told, get him away from the embassy. The Russians were like, we want nothing to do with that. That's on you. So we started pushing to the valley road, and we came across a task force call sign. I don't know who they were, what call sign they were, and they looked at us and we looked at them, and there was just like everyone paused and stopped and looked at each other like, what the hell's going on? And I was on comms like, are we engaging? What are we doing? Because there was still this element of, I've just been told I'm weapons free, but they're not engaging me. What are we doing? There was like this weird, it was still, we switched on to kind of a ceasefire mode, and then the call just come across the comms, just like, do what you need to do. And that was it. And we just opened.
I remember that now. I practically just said schwack 'em all.
It was like
lay waste to the multi-cam.
And we just, me and my boys I was like, right, well, squad comms, do it. And we were just like, what? And man, this element got torn up, and I felt so bad. That's what I was saying earlier about, I just felt so bad because they had no idea it was coming, and they were basically, I don't know, only like a few meters away, like 20 meters away from us in the hedge line. It was terrible. I felt bad, but at the same time, it's the way the game had pushed into that next
you do have, you have to initiate contact at some point. Someone's got to do it. It might as well be the nice guy of Airsoft, yeah?
I tried to be, mate. I tried to be.
Yeah, I think there was quite a bit of patrolling around after that initial contact. Obviously, the United Nations guys, you had him for a fair period. We then had you hand him off to another Opfor patrol.
Yes, it got past the reach.
Yeah, I mean, he eventually slipped the leash and made a runner for the task force harbour area, so he actually managed to get himself out.
It's a pleasant surprise when he turned up, and I didn't know about it.
Yeah.
Who the hell are you? What do you want? Yeah.
As well as I had call signs, out the ground. Yeah, moving to a different area to carry on the search, and he just comes running straight into the harbour. I'm thinking, all right, okay.
Yeah.
I mean, at that period of time, it was getting on for around 9:30, so darkness was on its way. We passed dusk.
Yeah.
Those last few lumens of light were still just about hanging around.
They weren't in the task force harbour area.
I was on stag, and it got to a certain point because where we had set up our stag point over to the right was kind of like a hill with a house on it.
Yeah.
The sun kind of dropped. I was like, shit, I can't see. But it went down, and I was like, if there's anyone, I know Tom's approach to where he was coming from because he kept on going there. I was like, if anyone walks up, I'm screwed because I can't see anything further than like 50, 60 meters into the bushes.
And we got a good push on your harbour area just before we lost the light, because we'd gone back to camp. We'd got our lids on, we'd got our nods on, we'd grabbed the big guns. We came out the Mark 46s, and we decided, right, we're just going to go kick the hornet's nest for a bit. So we'd made our way down into the valley, and that's when we got that.
You got the taste of blood in your mouth, didn't you, Tom?
Mate, yeah, we got down there. I was given
Wasting one
given
call sign wasn't
permission,
enough.
just like, mate, I got down there and I could see the backs, and I think it was Spartan, because I've spoken to some of the guys afterwards, like, yeah, I just put my meatballs on and all hell broke loose. Like,
it's the best time to assault about
yeah,
dinner time.
you could see all their backs. Something had happened to you. I don't know where your sentries were, because we knew where your sentries' positions were, so we pushed up to the side of where they should be, and they weren't there. And I must admit, me and my element were like, what's going on? Where's the sentries? Okay. So we dug a bit deeper, and we kept pushing into your sort of harbour area, and we got to the edge, sort of where the tree fall is, and then the rest is kind of the clearing bit. And it was at that point that we just saw, like, I think it was like 4 people's backs to us, and they had no plate carriers on, no helmets on, like no guns in their hands. They were all just standing around, sort of chatting and cooking up food, and we're like, well, it'd be a little bit rude not to, lads. So it's
Open season.
Open season, mate, and it just turned to a ballistic firefight. It was good fun. I mean, we got taken out. It was like 5 guys versus your entire TF element. It wasn't gonna ever win on our front, but it was just about, sort of rattling the saber, kicking the hornet's nest, and just having a laugh.
So shortly after, well, actually during that time, we had Rage 3 call sign, which were the Alpha.
Oh yeah.
That they had been giving a specific tasking to go and do some particularly dirty things. They moved through the hardest vegetation on that site, cutting tracks through on the side of a hill in order to drop down behind the task force harbour area. So they informed me it must have been about at least 9:45. They informed me that they were in position, ready to move on to the task force harbour area, and they immediately located the HQ's basher. So they located Nathan's basher. Word on the wire is they were having a nice natter and a chat, not really paying attention because they were sort of behind the forward line. But classy boys as they are, decided not to make contact straight away. They went to his basher. They grabbed up all of the intelligence pieces that task force collected during the day. They stole the task force flag. They stole their call sign patch off of Nathan's rucksack, because I informed them that I wanted his call sign, for my trophy cabinet. What else did they steal? I think that was about it. But it was actually, according to them, it was. They stole a. Well, this is the thing. So they stole a map that had been annotated, but before they put it in a bag, they actually took a photograph of it, which is good because all the markings got rubbed off. But that's lessons learned there. Always make soft copies of intel, because you might accidentally rub it out, or it might get stolen off you. Eh, Nathan? Yeah. So apparently, though, it was removing the call sign on the Velcro that alerted the task force to their whereabouts. So they had a contact, broke contact, did a bit of E&E, and got the hell out of there. They arrived back with me. It must have been about nearing 11 o'clock. No, it was about 10:30. Yeah, they came back to me. They were knackered, absolutely done. But they had smiles on their faces, so they achieved something. We hung up a flag and had a good laugh at task force expense. Brandon, you go ahead. You give us the down low on what teams were doing, what people were tasked with, and how it ran.
So got to night time, we kind of collapsed back our stag. There was a lot of open ground between our front like sentry points that we were using throughout the day, and then kind of collapsing back a little bit closer at night time. We decided, based upon the intel that we had got, obviously with the SAM site, that we was going to go take out the SAM site. alongside taking out the SAM site, there was also a plan to go cut the power feed into the embassy, which has obviously been full of a mix of Russians and civilians. My guys, which was
So why were you told to take the power out? And how was that power? What power are you talking about?
So I believe the reason the embassy was being taken out was just I think it was down to something that had happened during the day, because I was obviously on the recce ops for most of the day. I didn't get too involved in the core taskings that a lot of the task force boys done.
Right,
I
okay.
was more told to kind of keep track on movements, points of interest and things like that. So the real reasoning behind us taking it down, I'm sure either you or Nathan could inform me.
Yeah, okay. So we had the Embassy of Russia set up, and it had floodlights around it. Okay, the floodlights were being powered from a generator located in the substation, about 60, 70 meters away from the. Well, it's not actually that far. It's more like 40 meters.
It was probably 30, 40 meters underneath a massive spotlight.
Yeah, I'm trying to make the site sound bigger than it really was. It wasn't far away at all. I mean, it was long enough for an extension cable. Let's put it that way.
Yeah.
Extension cable that ran from the generator up among the trees and into the top of this the tower that was attached to the side of the embassy. From that we had a number of floodlights, and we had guys up there with some. Well, they're pretty tooled up. Let's put it that way.
I believe I saw nods and maybe an LMG. I know 3 people up there definitely had night vision.
Yeah, you might have seen 3 people up there. You might have seen a few tubes up there as well. Yeah,
there was a few people up there.
Yeah, we were keeping cozy. Let's put it that way.
So I knew that we had to take down the embassy. As to what the real reason behind it, I've been out on the ground for so long, so I wasn't kind of informed.
Well, the reason was because SVR, right, Zaslon, they are the Russian equivalent of the CIA security teams, were identified as being in the embassy. So the guys wearing the Embassy of Russia patches.
Okay. Yeah.
They were notified of being in the embassy. What you didn't want them to do is respond to the assault on the SAM site. Okay.
We was there to occupy him. It does make sense. I remember Nathan telling me now. I was running on probably about 20 minutes of sleep at that point.
So of course that you wanted to kill the floodlights so that he didn't firstly have that SAM site was so close to that embassy that
it literally washed out nods like big time. It was literally just a white ball, or it was like looking at the sun. So we were all sort of stood with our backs to it.
I mean, without nods on, I think the light only just reached it. You know, just sort of put a low level illumination.
There was a lot of light pollution from that.
Yeah, there was a little bit.
That was what Nathan had asked us to go do. We went out first. It was S1 and I believe it was S3 off the top of my head. It was kind of a mixed call sign. There was 2 of us with night vision, I believe, or maybe it was just me. As we pushed up the hill, coming from our
sorry, what was your tasking? Was it the
to take out the embassy? The embassy.
You were taking out the substation.
Yeah, we were taking out the substation. So Nathan gave me a lovely heavy crowbar.
You could have taken the sledgehammer, to be fair.
To take down the door. So we moved along, coming out of our harbour area, went up the hill. The second we kind of crested the hill, there was a lot of contact coming from a bush. Looking into the bush, it kind of looked like there was a nighttime rave going on. We all ducked into cover, all hid, and we just heard rounds flying everywhere. I radioed to Nathan, but I think the comms were a little bit iffy at that point. I told him it wasn't us. I believe I got something back through which closely resembled it's not us either. We didn't hang around to find out what it was. We carried on moving.
I can tell you exactly what it was.
Which later turned out to be a very big blue on blue, which I'm sure Tom will tell us soon. We pushed along to the embassy, kind of set up in I think we was probably no more than 30 meters, 40 meters in front of it in the bushes. There was a lot of spotlights going around. We kind of moved around to the left-hand side towards where the substation was. I kept eyes on the people on top of the tower. The rules of engagement was that we wasn't allowed to engage. That probably would have led to a World War III occurring.
Oh,
because
engaging with the Russian embassy, yeah, probably.
yeah, that probably wouldn't have gone down that well, and I reckon
I think you might have been met with a lot of
Oh, wait.
LMG fire. Had you
I was
done
about
that.
to say you had Rage 4 down there, just sort of like waiting out. We were packing 2 Mark 46s, and we were like, right,
I
we're
did
ready
see
to go,
movement
mate.
up at the top. So yeah, we decided probably it was in the best interest of countries and us to not engage with anyone on there. They moved around. I believe it was the 2 guys from S1 breached through the door, which
Well,
using...
no. Interestingly, so I screwed a door into the side of that building. So that building had 2 entrances into it.
I
Right?
believe they took the other entrance. If I looked correctly, I don't think they
Yeah.
actually went through the
So
breach door.
I literally screwed a door on, right, with a couple of screws that you literally could have kicked through, right, and painted the word breach on it, right. The other one, I moved a rather heavy water bowser up against the side of, and nailed a piece of wood above it. When I looked after the assault, the door was still hanging, and the water bowser had moved. So yeah, I mean, you
I didn't
literally
see them go round to the front of it. I think it was mostly because there was someone called out a PKP or something similar on a tower and a big spotlight on the front door. So it's probably why they didn't go for the front door, because they would have been spotted almost instantly.
I mean, the route they came in, I mean, all credit to them, had just the same amount of light on it as the door that they were meant to go through.
They were on the
but
floor, on their belt buckle, crawling
I
through the
didn't-
woodland.
Yeah, I didn't spot them move that water bowser. Right? I mean, with my organizer head on, I popped up and I saw them inside, and I was like, they must have crawled over the wall or something, because the structure had no roof on it.
Yeah.
So I thought, oh, they've given someone a lift over. They've gone over the top. So yeah, it was.
That would have certainly
but
been
no.
one way to do it.
I mean,
Given a crowbar and go, nah.
Ladder's the way to go. Yeah.
Well, Nathan gave me a bit of a nudge to it, just to say, like, don't kind of engage on it. It's going to be James up there. So I already kind of was under the assumption that you're not going to point us out and spot us, because we needed that to be taken out in order for the rest of the night to kind of go ahead.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's it. It was one of the sort of
we
loosely scripted set pieces.
Yeah, so we didn't want to, because I was only the real one that was kind of made privy to it. I didn't want to just walk through the middle, bowl through the open ground, up to the door, kick it, and then turn it
I
off.
know something that you don't know.
You'd have just heard me cackle with laughter.
Because I knew I could see your light moving, and every time someone went to move, the light strategically went in the other direction. And I was like, I could probably walk straight through the middle, and I know that James won't do anything about it. I was like, no, I'll let the other boys do it.
I think that was more so the spotlight that we had, so the movable spotlight that we had up there, we were literally just waving that about every few minutes. We weren't actually tracking people. We were just moving it to put some worry.
Well, you've done quite well to shit us up, because it kept on pointing at us, and everyone just froze. It was like deer in headlights. We all just stopped.
That's good drills.
And then after we took the taken out the generator, which we turned off, I was instantly hit by 3 or 4 IR lasers scanning through the woods. Me being the only one with night vision, I was trying to signal to the others to stop moving because there's lasers on them. Which, if anyone's ever played at night with people that weren't on the comms and they didn't have nods, it's quite hard to signal people.
Yeah, that secret laser light show that goes on at night.
So I was in the tree directly in front of the embassy, and the second it went down, I just saw 3 lasers scan.
Was that you in the? There was a small cluster of. It was hazel right in front of the.
It was kind of like a big-ish tree surrounded by smaller bushes. You shine the light on me, and I just stood still behind it. Because I knew that if I was to move, you would have spotted me, and my best chance was to stand there.
Yeah.
So I stood still. I saw these lasers, kind of one by one, we all collapsed back, and then at the time, as we was walking back, I believe that was when Nathan hit the SAM site with White Foss.
So yeah, I'll tell you what, let Nathan fill this bit in, because he.
That's if I don't drop out.
His 0 Dark 30 op.
wasn't well. Nah, it was executed pretty well, to be honest. It looked sick from my position. Put it that way. It was yeah. So as the lights go off, we were in position prior to that, just waiting. It just seemed like we were there for ages, just waiting, waiting, waiting. The Spartan guys, and the extra elements that were in their call sign, they just took that SAM site down. I mean, I literally got in there for the glory moment right at the end.
We
But
just heard quite a lot of, because we weren't too far, we just heard the lights go off and then just a typical TM clack.
yeah,
And it was just clack, 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 and then silence. It was like, I don't know what's just happened. And then I'm sure Nathan would tell us about his little firework. I say little, his big firework.
Just want to throw some appreciation towards those Worthing guys, like, because they must have had bums puckered when those lights went out.
I mean, we were pretty close to
I would
them.
have shit myself as well.
Yeah, I mean, I will never, from a game organiser's perspective, I guess it was a really poor call to have had them in there, because it was a little bit unfair.
You'd literally just taken us off Stag, and we were sitting up there like on that tower with our nods, just scanning everything.
That would have been a fight and a half. That would have been.
You had two LMG gunners both on nods, just scanning the horizon. And then the next minute,
I guess
was like, oh no.
The glory moment. It's an old colleague of mine, Wolfie, that's manager at Worthing Airsoft. He was on that call sign that was in there, so it did make me smile a little bit just to know that he was going down hard. But,
yeah, and down hard they went. But yeah, so we got in there, cleared it, went to set up that, and stood behind the metal barricade, shout clear, button press. I just heard the little match just go and fizz. I was like, fuck. But yeah, so yeah, went hands on, lit it, made sure that was not going to topple over, because that would have basically just showered us all in
that wouldn't have been good.
Flames and sparks, as we saw in the exfil.
It did keep, as you kind of time went on, it did start getting higher and higher as well.
Yeah, it was a sort of conical.
It climbed kind of as time went on.
Yeah, because the fountain itself is a cone, so the longer it burns,
that makes sense.
The more it's burning. Yeah, it's got more volume.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's what that was, and I think. We had it on top of an oil drum. What's an oil drum? 3.5, 4 foot. But we were quite some distance from it, weren't we, Tom?
Yeah.
But it looked high from where we were. I can only imagine what it looked like to be right in amongst it.
We was kind of in the trees along the path of the embassy, and we could see it kind of somewhat above the trees.
Yeah,
it wasn't low. It was very high. And I think after that, as we was walking back out, we run into Blackthorn in their truck.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So just to touch on, so we had a pyro ban at night, right? Percussive pyro. So during our planning phase, we wanted to take out this SAM site. We wanted to do it at night because nighttime's cool. We were trying to figure out how we can take out a SAM site that isn't just a firefight, that is physically blowing something up but without noise. And we just decided that if we buy a professional firework fountain that's low decibel level, we can get away with running that at night without upsetting the local village. So that was the reasoning behind the kind of White Foss simulation.
I think it worked quite well because it did kind of go up like in a thermite kind of fashion.
Yeah. It did.
I think it went better than just a big explosion because you had that backlighting us as we retreated away. So I saw Nathan's all kind of 8 of them move out from the bushes in the lighting of the fountain.
Yeah,
and it looks pretty sick.
It was a good 60 to 90 second burn.
It went on for ages. That it kind of lit up their exfil that we watched them. And as they kind of entered back onto the path, all of a sudden we heard an engine. And we all knew that who was out at the time was Cody in a big truck and a big light. Then we saw the big white kind of floodlight bar turn on. And all 8 or 9 people that was with Nathan kind of just scattered. and you just saw bodies move while there was a PKP laying down fire into everything that moved. It was quite a good. It was quite good to see.
Good old Blackthorn. They do fill a job, don't they?
So the second it was really well planned. I don't know if they spotted us or if they just had the headlights and saw it, but it was
that they were on QRF.
So we just they must have heard and seen the explode, like the SAM site going up.
Yeah.
And as we went onto the road, it was kind of headlights, big light bar, massive PKP, and then it was in that order. And then all hell kind of broke loose into the bushes. I think there was probably about 12 of us there, I believe, and someone threw. Obviously, you said previously in the night that to take out a vehicle is to use explosives. But with the percussive band at 8:30, I don't know who suggested it. It was someone on the task force, guys, I believe.
Yeah.
Why don't we use smoke? Which worked quite well.
I do have issue with smoke taking out vehicles because vehicles are on a set path. I mean, if you can take a vehicle out with, something you can buy down at your local airsoft store or at your airsoft site, a £3.50 smoke grenade. It
takes out a £4,000 asset.
Yeah, it does. It does ruin the point of having those assets on the ground. But we haven't yet figured out the right way of taking out vehicles at night when there's a pyro ban. During the day, tag rounds, yeah, that's fine. At night, yeah, we need something else. We got some plans in motion, but for that particular event, smoke worked perfectly well. I think I might be right or wrong, but I think it was a mill smoke that went out.
Yes, it was at least 2 mill smokes. So
you heard the creaks we were in the embassy, and you heard that as the spoons flew off.
Do you know, as soon as you hear that metal kind of ping, you're like, oh, we're not going to be able to see anything. Yeah. So I can agree with it being like a tiny little puff of smoke from like a handheld smoke grenade, like the ones you can. But this was a big mill smoke that kind of just engulfed the whole entire track, the woods, the whole lot in just white smoke.
Cody got on the blower to me and was like, I can't see anything. Someone's thrown a smoke at me. I was like, yeah, you're out, mate. It was like, oh, fair enough.
Yeah.
I think at that point, because they were in the smoke, a lot of them decamped and run down to our fob to set up.
No, some
of them that run down there.
Blackthorn split himself in two.
Oh, they were already down there then.
Yeah, there was 3 guys with a wagon, and there was 4 guys down by your harbour area waiting for you.
That makes sense.
But didn't want to make it too easy.
So we kind of went back under the assumption that we had got everyone. So obviously we saw the blue on blue that took out a few people.
Yeah, we got to talk about that still.
I need to touch on that. We saw obviously the ones in the embassy that we didn't take out, but we knew that was there. And then we had the Blackthorn lot. So we kind of walked back, half expecting not to see anyone, but kind of alert. And then as we walked back, there was just these IR signatures that we couldn't quite pick up who it was. And we got probably within about 20 meters. And then all of a sudden it took one laser, which I believe was, I don't know who was at the front. There might have been the Spartan boys, something like that. And it took one laser, and then they took maybe 4 or 5 of us, including Nathan. And it just turned into a firefight. Just rounds everywhere.
It would have been better had they turned their strobes off. I think it would have been a little bit more of a surprise.
That's what the IR signature kind of come from. Yeah, we was walking back, and it was just like, it was like 3 over in the left and a couple in front. It was just kind of like blink, blink, and was like, we're all out. It can't be us.
Little lesson to the Blackthorn boys, if you're listening, which I hope you do. You don't need IR strobes running all the time.
And not when you're trying to hide.
Well, and certainly not when you know that your enemy forces have night vision capabilities.
It's probably one of those things, when your adrenaline kicks in when you're waiting for the fight. It's probably one of those things they just didn't think to flick off. But the firefight we had there was quite good. It was, I wouldn't say it was unexpected. It was, they just kind of come out of nowhere, and then we moved through them. And I think that started off all the nighttime attacks that we kept on getting, which resulted in me getting about 30 minutes sleep, I think.
I mean, that was pretty. Gonna open a whole hand up to that. That was all of them night attacks that coming through. It was all from Blackthorn, basically. So if we rewind back to before the,
I mean, it is because there are a bunch of children that got hyped up on bloody Skittles and
Harry had like 4 or 5 Red Bulls before the nighttime attack.
Yeah. I'm like a.
Yeah, nah, you're
No,
right.
so like my call sign was pulling stag on the Sam site. I think it was we were doing the 10 o'clock to 11
No, you finished at 11. I know that because that's when
what
I
my
put.
stag. Okay, so I was doing 10 to 11, and we were sitting on Sam site. As I said, got the MGs up. We're sitting there in nods. We're scanning. We had like this most over the top. I've forgotten who brought it. I can't remember. Mark might have brought it with him. This most over the top IR torch ever known to man, and he was just like we were just sweeping the woodbine around us, just like using the nods, just like trying to get every advantage we can. Obviously, you had the white light coming in from the embassy as well. We came off a stag, and we were like, right, what are we going to get up to? And we were toying with, are we going to head back to our base camp, take on some water and stuff? And then this call came through the radio from you, James. It was like, Rage 3 at this point. Rage 3 had been taken out. They'd been hit, and they were like, Rage 4 urgent retasking, get over and assist Rage 3. So we were just like, right, okay. So we had to sort of double back on ourselves, go sort of full bore as best you can in the pitch black, using nods to navigate round the track to come up to Rage 3's position. Now we didn't strictly know where their base camp was because it was so well hidden in the ferns. But we could see like a red dead man's light and also an IR strobe blinking, like to signify like this is like there's dead going over there.
Was Rage 3 Blackthorn, sorry?
No,
Rage 3 was the
were
reconnaissance element. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So we were coming up to the edge of the ferns, and Mark, who was on point in my section, was just like, we can't get through here. This is like a drop valley and straight back up again. We can't get through here. And I was just like, we've got to find a way around. And at that point, I remember, I think it was like an IR laser or a light flicked over to my right hand side. I turned around and literally all hell broke loose. Like literally all these IR lasers and torches just flicked up, and the bush line ahead of me just opened up. Me and the boys all dropped to the knee. Like half my element got taken out straight away. Me and Mark managed to return a few bursts with the LMGs. Like you sort of using a bit. I think I managed to get my IR ping up on my deval once or twice and put 2 bursts out, and then I got slotted, and we were just sitting there, and we were like, wow, we just got absolutely annihilated. And it was like, fair play, guys. That was a really good ambush. And all you heard from the opposition was, nice work, guys. Nice work. And they all just scurried off. So we're walking back, dead men walking down the track. And then you just hear this scream over comms like, blow. And we just got annihilated by a friendly call sign. It was great.
It was good to watch from the top of the ridgeline, though.
What I heard everyone was saying, they watched it, and there was just this massive call sign.
Like I said, I think
Great.
those young boys had just got off their absolute nuggets on Red Bull, Monster, Skittles, and Haribo, and they were definitely up for a punch up. So
it was good.
So they continued that through the night, as far as I'm aware, and hit the task force harbour over a few times over. I think task force were a little bit tired, in fairness, weren't they?
Well, yeah.
According to my phone, I think I got 25 minutes sleep, maybe about 30 minutes. At one point, we did get attacked towards the end. I think I stood up in my sleeping bag and just decided to kind of hit fire into the bushes, as I didn't even bother to get out of my pit. I got up in my pit and just carried on shooting.
So I won't tell you about the night's sleep that we had then. We were just like, we got back to our base camp. We were like, well, are they going to hit us or not? And we're like, probably not. But I'll tell you what, we'll put the perimeter alarms out. So we set up our perimeter alarms and put our head down. We ended up getting about 2 or 3 hours sleep. But I won't rub that in.
That would have been quite nice.
We had every intention of coming out to get you, but
it never happened.
I think I myself got more sleep on the Saturday night than I did on the Friday night, which was meant to be a bit of a social night before the event. But yeah, I definitely slept better on the Saturday night. I got myself out of my pit about 4:30, 5 o'clock in the morning, first thing I did was phone Cody, make sure that he was up and about. I woke him up as it happens. Oh no, I gave Kevin his slap as well. Woke him up, put the kettle on, phoned Cody. I gave you a kick, didn't I, Tom?
Yeah, you came over, and I think most of our guys, we were all up by this. Was it like 4 a.m.? 3:30?
No, it was a little bit later than that. It must
Yeah.
have been banging on 5 o'clock by then.
Yeah, we'd
just-
been up for about 45 minutes because we were
Yeah.
all just finishing off our scran and stuff, and we're just getting
Yeah.
ready to get pulled up and stuff. And
That's it.
Yeah, we went out to go, and we came out, and you were like, "What do you want to do?" I was like, "Should we go hit the harbour area again?" Yeah, why not? So that's what we ended up doing. First, it was kind of like it was light at this point, so we ended up launching another attack, probably down into the harbour area about 5:30.
I was going to say it's about 5:30-ish because
By that time, yeah.
everyone was kind of just so throughout the night. There wasn't too many people that actually stood to for the second and the third contact. I know-
laziness. What they need is an angry Russian to get
Well,
motivated.
I don't know how they didn't hear the full fire from everyone, the screaming, everyone
I
calling
say
people
everyone
to stand to.
Yeah, everyone was screaming, everyone was shooting. I think it was a case of they weren't asleep; they just refused to get up.
Just like, yeah, I've had enough
Absolutely
now.
knackered from getting up that hill. It's quite a start then when you get woken up to Blackthorn, shouting "Wakey, wakey," and it just echoes throughout the valley.
I guess the next main thing that occurred was you gathered intel the day before that we had a high value target entering the AO. Now, what actually is happening or has happened within Central African Republic is the main presidential advisor to, I'm not going to try and murder his name, but the president of Central African Republic is actually Russian. Is dispatched by Moscow. We decided to take a little bit of a detour from reality on this and go with a person called Vinko Pandurovic, who is a Bosnian Serb war criminal. So Vinko Pandurovic was, for our purposes, fulfilling that role of the presidential advisor and the high value target. So that person was set to arrive around 9 o'clock in the morning. I had a message to tell me that high value target had arrived in place and was waiting pickup from their close protection team. What Opfor were meant to do is move the vehicle column up to a certain position, set up an all-round defence, and wait for Vinko, their HVT, and their close protection team to make their way to the vehicles, load up, and then move out through a set route around the AO before finishing back up at the embassy. Tom, I know your call sign was you were basically put as a QRF, so as embassy security and QRF.
Yeah, we were embassy security with Kevin and acting QRF. Such if the convoy was to come into any danger, we were to leave our location at post haste, go and retrieve the asset back to base.
We had some issues with actually collecting and getting the high value target to the convoy. As I understand it, Brandon, you'd been instructed to set up in an ambush position and await the convoy rolling through. Is that correct?
Yeah, so on my mark it's going to be green 5, but if you look to the right of the tip of the triangle, we was set up there. I was on a sniper down towards the end of the path. There was a bit of contact gone on between Opfor and us at the time, which kind of led to a bit of confusion because there was just a firefight that broke out along the main path, and it just so happened that a lot of the Apex boys, where they were held up in the fight, turns out to be where you guys was planning to gear up and go on the thing.
Well, that's where we were planning to move on from to a checkpoint, but I think what happened is we had guys stationed in the SAM site just on sort of security, and they got hit. So we had to change our plans. We're like, okay, so we can't move. I mean, I could move forward.
That firefight lasted for ages. That firefight at the SAM site, that was my element and most of Blackthorn were holding down the SAM site. We got into a massive firefight with loads of elements in the wood that last ages.
Yeah, I think that was partially the fault of we got into a fight, we broke contact from the fight, and then they stumbled on you guys.
Yeah.
Purely out of coincidence, which then caused another fight.
So where were you told to set up your ambush location?
So we was told to hit the second vehicle. Obviously, we had the HVT that was rolling through. We was planned to hit the second vehicle along the. It's kind of. I think you said that it was like the ridge line. Was how you addressed it earlier. On the main ridge line, kind of towards the end, the Spartan boys were going to hit the first vehicle with a tag to take out the first vehicle. We was going to move into the secure the HVT on the second, and then I think it must have been call signs 3 and 4 were
going to hit the
rear vehicle and just kind of held security. That all went up in the air a little bit because of the contact that we got that the UN and Opfor stumbled right upon us down the path. They kind of
that wasn't the UN. Interestingly, that wasn't.
Was it not?
No, that was the close protection team for the high value target. So, in a little bit of poor planning, we'd had they didn't this close protection team that we had running didn't necessarily know that United Nations were running as characters throughout the event. So that when they decided to rock up in blue jeans and happened to wear bluish baseball caps, like Patagonia baseball caps.
Yeah,
they did look like UN, but they weren't.
Yeah,
they were actually the close protection team. Yeah.
Oh, that's where the confusion. So we thought that we engaged on the UN based upon their hat.
Which would have been dumb as a task force there to set, to be predominant security for a United Nations task force, wouldn't it? Yeah, that would have been silly.
But I think the confusion led from the people with the hats engaging because they were protecting the HVT to then Opfor engage at the same time. But I will admit, when I've been to previous events, when something like that has happened, which is meant to be planned to go down in a certain way, the events kind of went stale and went to a standstill. But the ability for you, Nathan, Kevin, led one to kind of replan it on the fly.
So what we did
went really well.
We had the close protection team move back to the convoy. They ditched their weapons and were in full civ mode, and they actually moved down the public footpath that went along the outside of the site to meet up with the principal. So they used public footpaths, obviously without weapons, without load bearing equipment, without anything but their mobile phones, picked up the high value target, moved them to an angle where they could then enter the game site, re-pick up their weapons and RV with the convoy. Okay. So anyway, we got the HVT to the convoy and we're able to get wagons rolling. And there wasn't too long a period before you guys definitely broke contact and melted into the wood line before the HVT made it back to the convoy, but there wasn't a massive lead time between those two events.
No, it seemed like by the time they had, I think because where they were located, comms are a little bit iffy with the kind of overhead of the trees. By the time
I think that the fact that your zero was quite deep in a valley, you got to remember that the radios we're using, VHF and line of sight radios, you've got a hill between you and them.
But from once we broke contact, we all met down the Del End Bridge.
Yep.
We was kind of on the fly, adjusted to. We were still doing the same thing, letting the first vehicle get tagged by the Spartan boys. We was putting the second vehicle. The last people, which was 3 and 4, were kind of filling up the last vehicle just to make sure there was no stragglers from it.
So we got wagons rolling. We crested the ridge line and moved down towards where you were set up at the dead end, which we obviously saw you. Saw these weapons get lowered towards us, and basically just all 3 vehicles just put our foot on the gas. We knew we'd had it by then. As we were approaching down the hill, we could see these white teeth, smiling, grinning at us. That first. I mean, I was in the second vehicle. I was driving the 90 with the principal in the back. I saw the strike to the first vehicle happen directly in front of me. Then almost immediately strike to my vehicle, and then I heard a third one go off, which I watched in my rear view camera as it bounced under the rear vehicle. So yeah, it was a really good assault. In fairness, all three tags hit their targets within about a second or two of one another. There was nowhere they were debussing, so we said, right, zip up, lock the doors, see what happens, basically. So tell us what you did, Brandon. Tell us what happened.
From my point of view, there was quite a few smokes being thrown around, and I was using my sniper in a bush, and that made it quite difficult to find who was who and where was what was happening. I ended up dumping my sniper in a bush, moving to the vehicle. We kind of set up a perimeter around it, ready for the contacts to be finished. I don't know if it was yourself or the close protection. Someone basically said she's not going anywhere, basically until it's safe, as getting her out of the vehicle at that time probably would have just led to instant death within about 5 seconds. So the area was secure. We kind of set up a big perimeter. Someone got the HVT out of the vehicle. Don't know if you got out as well, James. I can't quite remember.
I did, yeah. I did exit the vehicle.
And then we took the HVT and her 2 or 3 close protective.
2, yeah. There was a close
two,
protection team of 4, and somehow 2 of them managed to argue their way into staying by the principal's side. I don't know how. But
there was a lot of not itchy trigger fingers, but it was kind of a nervousness around that because they were armed next to the HVT amongst the task force people. So I think me and George, or it might have been someone else, had basically stuck around the close protection unit just in case they tried to do anything.
So yeah,
it was sketchy.
I mean, that was never planned, but like I literally, because I was sitting next to one of the guys that went, and he was just arguing the toss.
Oh, he wouldn't say. He said she's not going anywhere unless I go with her. It was like, but he's just like, no, well, I'm not going anywhere without. I was like, okay, come with us then, I guess.
I mean, yeah, to me that was an interesting dynamic. It really was. But I ended up folding in with the team that was the 2 guys of the 4 that were left behind. Yeah.
So then we continued along the path. Someone had broken contact during that fight to push up to what you refer to as like the ridge line.
Yeah.
So we were kind of on edge. Not only did we have 2 close protection like units with us that were armed that we didn't quite know if they were going to try anything, we also had the element of the people that had broke contact potentially meeting up with us on the way back and having a firefight on the move. Luckily, no one did.
We were trying, mate. We were trying to get down that hill.
I saw you guys run, and I know exactly where you're coming from, and we all just watched that kind of hill, and we all walked like crabs sideways, just watching the hill along the road. We know it's going to happen. It's bound to happen. All in all, we managed to get back. I was radioing Nathan at the time. The HVT ended up going back to the command tent. At what point, pretty much everyone just got ready for the big finale gunfight that there normally is at an event, and it was quite a large gunfight that went on.
Yeah, unfortunately, nobody had told the village just around the corner that
there was going to be maybe like 1 or 2 tags.
Mate,
yeah.
The amount of tags that were coming out of Blackthorn from that gun truck was ridiculous. It was just an onslaught, like boom, boom.
We knew there was going to be a couple, but then George ran for his and then picked his up. So it was literally like a game of like tennis.
So Kevin had grabbed the Defiant mortar and moved his way onto the hillside that overlooked the Task Force Harbour area. So he was dropping mortar rounds.
It was just non-stop.
Well, I think we had quite a few. We need to reassess our use of smoke because I think we had because of had a dry. It's been quite dry. We had a few fires started because of smoke rounds. So we've never had an issue with the with the bangs, but those smoke rounds do burn a little hot.
We did have a couple of them which we kind of dealt and then moved on. There was that one large one which I believe, Tom, that was probably near you.
I think that happened right in front of Wolfie, who's the site manager there, and he was looking at this task force guy going, "Stomp it out, then." And the guy from task force obviously misunderstood slightly. So, but yeah, Wolfie was able to deal with that little fire just with the application of a boot. So once we'd evaluated that wood burns, Nathan, where were you during all this? I take it you were hiding in your basher somewhere, hoping that everything would blow over. Yeah.
No, I was actually trying to get away from the fucking tag grounds, to be honest. I mean, I did park myself behind a big tree.
Shame you couldn't have put your high value target behind some cover.
Well,
There was none.
There was none, but she was far enough back. I don't know how that got in through that tree canopy, but it did. Turned into a pick miss.
There was a good couple of tags thrown through. I reckon there was quite a high chance that at least one of them was going to hit.
Oh yeah, definitely.
I mean, I think the repeating trend of this conversation is because they're not here to defend himself is blame Blackthorn. All right, so the high value target.
Hang on, wasn't it the second mortar round that came in from Kevin that blew up?
No, certainly wasn't. No, certainly wasn't anything to do with fire.
That was not what happened. Oh right, okay.
No, you remember the whole newspaper situation? Yeah, it's just another one of those. Just
it was definitely a Blackthorn tag that took out the high value target. No, in honest, we don't really know. There was a lot of pyro being launched by many different methods, but something landed within about a foot of the high value target, blew her and her close protection team to bits. Unfortunately, yeah, we had to end a little bit early, but let's be honest, the high value target was dead.
I was about to say the game ended when they died.
Was your objective to kill her or get her back?
Do you want me speaking as a game organizer or as Opfor command?
From the game, from the kind of game organizer, the way it was going, I would have thought you wanted to get her back.
I mean, that was an option, certainly.
That was an option.
I mean, it's my wife. I mean, if you don't get a chance to blow up your wife, yeah.
Well, you already did earlier in the day. This was a second chance.
So, I mean, from a game perspective, I guess you could say that Task Force didn't manage to exfiltrate that high value target, or didn't manage to exfil that high value target. Opfor didn't manage to recapture the high value target or the principal. However, spreading her out over a wide area using explosives did at least mean that she couldn't be tried for war crimes. So that put an end to that. As long as everybody has a smile on their face, I don't really care what side technically won or technically lost. I know that both sides achieved the objectives that were set out for them, or at least most of the objectives that were set out for them. So, Tom, any sort of closing thoughts from you before we move on?
Closing points for me from the Opfor point of view is I was really impressed about the amount of effort you guys actually put into Opfor. This is something that I've said quite a lot of time. Like, generally, when you do an Opfor game or you play Opfor at a lot of games, or that I've found personally, is you sort of you're kind of left to your own devices somewhat. Like, we have a number of objectives, or like as a principal coming in, we've got to do this or do that. But you spend a lot of time doing civ pop and lots of dicking around. Like, it was very different to do an op where we were tooled up from the get-go. We're all keeping within the storyline. We had all the toys. We had all the gun trucks. We had the vehicles. We had all the really cool shit going on. And it was almost like Task Force were on the back foot. So to see this come in the game, I thought was really refreshing, and I really enjoyed that element of it. I was amazed that everyone kept in character and not breaking the ceasefire. And I guess the only really disappointing bit for me is the fact that no one actually managed to assault my camp, because I was ready for a hell of a fight and it never happened.
I think just reiterating Tom's point, a lot of the time when you get on Opfor, your whole premise is just to be a knob for 24 hours without any real set in stone what to do. A lot of the time people walk around, concealed gun, shoot Task Force.
Yeah.
That's kind of the premise behind
So
lot of events, but I feel like they had a lot to do, and it kind of made
originally we were thinking
good.
about concealed weapons as an Opfor concept, but actually COVID kind of did us a favour. You won't hear many people saying that, but COVID kind of did us a favour. I didn't want to run our first event, Sentinel, this year. Didn't want to run, and we were running Civpop at that. We didn't want guys to have concealed weapons because I thought it was unfair for Civpop to be able to run concealed weapons, but Task Force not to be able to conduct searches because of social distancing and COVID compliance. The general consensus is people prefer it that Opfor can't, and I do. It's a grey area to me because I would like to be able to carry concealed, but not be a knob. Okay. But once you're carrying concealed, there is a very strong temptation to be a knob, to whip that concealed weapon out and catch the task force off guard. What that then leads to is task force being very, very on guard around Opfor, and then just shooting them at any opportunity for whatever reason. So the ROEs break straight away.
That's what has happened to me countless times when I've done sort of Opfor at Longmore, like one of I think the last Gladius game. Like we were all concealed carry, like, and we were having a bit of a riot in the street, and there's task force guys in front of us, trying to stop the riot. A few warning shots on the floor and cutting the hands up. Like this is pre-COVID, so obviously there was a little bit more contact going on, and they're like pushing you back and stuff, and then literally just our local guy on the ground turned around and was just like, yeah, let them have it. And we all just whipped out our Glocks, mate, and just laid these guys out in front of us. And they had this look on their faces like, what the fuck? I get it. It can be a real dickish move.
I just feel that point, as soon as you destroy that trust, okay, there's not a lot of trust because everybody goes out the outset knowing that person is enemy. But as soon as you destroy that element of trust that's left, you can't go back on those with ROEs. So whether we look at doing concealed weapons in the future or not, I don't know. In fact, the next event we're going to run, we will be using concealed weapons, or we will be smuggling weapons, but they won't be weapons that you can access quickly, if you know what I mean. So you won't have a pistol tucked down your jeans, but you might have an AK in a rucksack, inside, or in a bundle of sticks wrapped up in a blanket or something like that. So we will be concealing weapons, but nothing that's quick draw or nothing you can really respond quickly with. And I think that might be the happy medium for us for a little while.
I think if the pressure's there already, it's not needed because the tension's high enough as it is. You come up against Opfor, even civvies, you'll probably still have an element of tension.
Just to touch on the point that Tom made earlier about Opfor were tooled up from the get-go. They never felt on the back foot. You had the vehicles, you had the assets, all that kind of stuff. If you're at Sentinel, obviously Opfor didn't have any vehicles for that. There was a lot of Civpop going stuff. I think Task Force had a lot of the cool gear going on there. And it was mentioned to us in our feedback, it would be nice if both teams had vehicles. But actually, if you look at those sites we were running on, if both teams had vehicles, you just end up bonnet to bonnet, and then nothing would move anywhere. So it wasn't something that we were. I mean, as game organisers, we do consider the possibility of running vehicles on both sides if possible. If it's not possible or not practical, we won't do it. But for this one, we wanted to tool up the Opfor because it's sort of Russian sponsored. There's Russian PMCs out there. It's in Central African Republic. It seemed right, and I think I like the Opfor role, and I think assuming that they're always undergunned, or even writing events where Opfor are practically just targets. Is poor writing in my mind.
One of the comps I had back on I can't remember who it's come from from Instagram. Someone on Task Force saying, because I was quite worried that some of the Task Force guys might be a little bit get the kind of noses put out a little bit, that they didn't have all the vehicles and stuff. But I think you guys made up for it for doing like a lot of recce work, and I think the words were said like because we were almost on the back foot, it was almost like we had to like think differently and kind of just be a bit more humble with how we're playing, instead of kind of having that almost over cockiness that a lot of times Task Force have. Like, we got the fucking gun trap, mate. We got this shit. But they didn't.
Yeah. We got the gun trap. We got the fob. No, you didn't. You didn't actually have the. Yeah, you didn't have
pushing
any.
a lot more reconnaissance and scouting skills out, like getting around the AO, avoiding that gun track, or I'm going to get shot to pieces, sort of thing. So I guess it made you guys think about it in a different way.
But yeah, it was interesting to see Task Force not necessarily on the back foot, but have to operate in a different manner. And I think they managed it really well. In fairness, I think it was fair firefights all round. It was just a different take on things. Now, we're not always going to have it Opfor run all the vehicles. Actually, just going back to the vehicles bit, like I said, we always we put out the feedback forms after an op, and for the last couple we've had, we'd like to see Opfor have some vehicles, or we'd like to see Task Force have some vehicles. The mention of vehicles this time around actually came from an Opfor guy that said it would have been nice to have gone up against a vehicle. So that was a different take on things. Normally it's like, we haven't got this and we want it. It was like, I would have liked to have gone up against a vehicle. Thanks very much. I was like, okay, fair point. Someone's got a death wish.
We should have got the old pit bike out, quad bike, buggy.
Oh no, yeah. get the old razor going. Yeah. Brandon, do you want to sum up with any closing points?
I think the way it was run was really well run. The elements kind of the newspaper articles, the videos that was posted, things like that, really helped play into the whole storyline. And with it being lower numbers, it kind of did help the way it run. There wasn't overcrowding in areas. There was a lot of space that you could move around undetected. Like I hopefully did for most of the day anyway. And everyone did follow the ceasefire rules really well. There was literally not even a slight hint of a friendly fire or people shooting at each other before it started. Even when obviously the S2 or Spartan boys got contact, or what they thought was contact, they didn't immediately return fire, which probably would have ruined that portion of the event and everything that was going on.
I think it would have. You would have definitely seen an angry Russian. had there been some retired. I mean, I'm not going to say that we couldn't have dragged it back, but it would have been a challenge.
You definitely would have been able to drag it back, but it just would have hindered or killed it a little bit for that next 20 minutes while it's kind of fresh in everyone's mind. But yeah, it was run really well, and the Opfor seemed to have a bit more of a presence, was quite a good change, rather than them just running around and kind of just throwing grenades and throwing smokes and just seemed like aimlessly doing stuff. They actually had set objectives that they had to follow, and were seen visible doing as well.
So the whole idea was it was Russian private military companies training and managing Central African Republic soldiers. So it wasn't, you're not talking just local stand that's picked up an AK. That these are their training. They are getting used to being a cohesive fighting force. So I think it did present itself quite well in that way. Right, should we close this one down for the night? I don't know how long we've been wheedling on. I just wanted to say thank you to Brandon and Tom for joining us tonight, and your insight's been really good. It's been really, really nice to hear your perspective on the event that we put on. So yeah, thank you for that, and I hope you all have a nice evening.
No worries. Thanks for the invite. Thanks for a good
Right, cheers. Right, we'll crack it off there then, shall we?